the sentence that fails basic science. It usually arrives quietly. No drama, no anger, just a conclusion that feels obvious. Some people just succeed easily. To a scientist, this sentence already failed the test. Not morally, not emotionally, scientifically, because it explains nothing. In physics, we never accept a sentence that describes an outcome without a mechanism. We don't say, this object moves easily, and stop there. We ask, what forces are acting? What resistances exist? What constraints were removed? If someone tried to publish a paper saying, this particle moved easily because it is special, they would be laughed out of the room. Yet with human progress, we accept this level of explanation daily. That acceptance is the root error. What physics knows that motivation does not, physics learned something long ago that self-help culture still ignores. Motion is not created by effort. Motion is what remains after resistance is removed. An object does not keep moving because force is continuously applied. It keeps moving because opposing forces are low. Newton's first law is not poetic, it is brutal. An object in motion stays in motion unless acted upon by an external force. Translated into human systems, if progress feels hard to sustain, it is not because motivation is weak. It is because counterforces are constantly acting. Physics does not ask, how hard did the object try? Physics asks, where is the friction? Human progress works the same way. Friction is invisible. That's why success is misread. In mechanical systems, friction is rarely visible. You do not see it directly. You infer it from energy loss. Human friction behaves identically. You do not see ego resistance, false assumptions, emotional denial, wrong mental models. You only see the outcome, stalled progress, burnout, inconsistency. So when friction is removed early, motion looks effortless later. Observers never saw the friction. They only see the smooth trajectory. They call it easy success. Physics calls it low resistance dynamics. Why effort is a meaningless variable. Effort is not a fundamental quantity. Physics has force, mass, acceleration, energy, resistance. There is no unit for trying hard. Two systems can apply the same force and produce opposite results depending on constraints and friction. Likewise, two people can work equally hard. One accelerates, the other stalls. Effort did not change. The system did. Any explanation that starts and ends with effort is not an explanation. It is a confession of ignorance. The real question, science asks. A scientist never asks, why did this work for them? A scientist asks, what variables were different? When applied to success, the variables that actually matter are clarity of model accuracy, of feedback, alignment of constraints, amount of internal resistance. None of these are visible in highlight reels, which is why highlight reel explanations are always wrong. Why intelligence is a bad explanation. In physics, we never say, this particle accelerated because it is intelligent. Intelligence is not a causal variable. Yet in human explanations, we constantly rely on talent, intelligence, genius. These words feel explanatory. They explain nothing. If intelligence were the driver, smart people would never stagnate. Reality disagrees. What actually changes is not intelligence, but model accuracy. People who move faster replaced wrong models earlier. That replacement is silent. The acceleration that follows is not. Mental models are physical laws in disguise. A wrong physical law guarantees failed predictions. A wrong mental model guarantees wasted years. If you believe heavier objects fall faster, no amount of practice will fix your physics. If you believe success comes from intensity instead of alignment, no amount of hustle will fix your outcomes. People who appear to succeed easily are usually the ones who deleted incorrect models sooner. Deleting a model is painful. It feels like failure. But in science, model collapse is progress. Why feedback is measurement, not judgment. Physics without measurement is philosophy. Human effort without feedback is fantasy. Feedback does three things: exposes false assumptions, locates dominant variables, prevents energy waste. Avoiding feedback is equivalent to running experiments and refusing to look at the results. People do not fear feedback because it hurts feelings. They fear it because it threatens identity. But identity protection is friction. Low ego equals clean signal. Clean signal equals fast correction. The complexity tax is conservation of energy. Energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. Complexity works the same way. If you avoid complexity now, it does not disappear. It returns later as confusion, rework, plateaus, burnout. Experts did not escape complexity. They paid it early. Simplicity is not free. It is prepaid. Observers see the simplicity and assume the journey was simple. Physics says otherwise. Entropy and why experts feel calm. High entropy systems feel chaotic. Beginners operate in high entropy. Too many variables, unclear constraints, noisy signals. Experts reduced entropy by eliminating variables, tightening constraints, discarding noise. Calmness is not personality. It is low entropy cognition. People confuse calm with confidence. It is actually system order. Why struggle is not evidence of correctness. Physics never measures success by how much friction existed. It measures efficiency. Struggle proves only one thing: resistance exists. Correct question: is this resistance reducing uncertainty? If yes, it is useful. If no, it is waste. People who exit useless struggle early appear to have smoother paths. They are not lucky, they are efficient. The first scientific correction. From a physics standpoint, the sentence, "some people succeed easily," is equivalent to saying, "some objects move naturally." That statement explains nothing. Objects move when friction is low, constraints align, forces cancel correctly. People progress when ego resistance is low, feedback is honest, models match reality. No magic, no motivation, only mechanics. Why consistency is a physics problem, not a character flaw. People constantly say, "I just can't stay consistent." This sentence already assumes the wrong model. In physics, we never say, "This system lacks discipline." We say, "This system has unbalanced forces." Consistency is not a moral achievement. It is a stable equilibrium. If a system requires constant force to maintain motion, it is unstable by design. Human behavior follows the same rule. When effort must be applied every day just to continue, the system is fighting itself. That fight is not heroic. It is inefficient. Why willpower is a non-renewable resource. In physics, we never design systems that require continuous manual correction to remain functional. Why? Because manual correction leaks energy. Willpower works the same way. It is not infinite. It is not reliable. It is not a foundation. People who stay consistent easily are not stronger. They remove the need for willpower by aligning incentives, feedback, and identity. Once alignment exists, continuation becomes automatic. Observers call this discipline. Physics calls it self-stabilizing systems. The difference between force and alignment. Force is external input. Alignment is internal configuration. Force must be reapplied. Alignment persists. In mechanics, pushing harder increases stress. Redesigning constraints removes stress. In human systems, trying harder increases burnout. Redesigning the system removes resistance. Most people push. Very few redesign. That difference explains almost everything. Why motivation peaks and then dies? Energy gradients. Energy flows downhill. Motivation spikes because novelty creates a temporary energy gradient. Once novelty fades, the gradient disappears. Physics predicted this. Motivational culture ignored it. Sustainable motion requires continuous energy input or elimination of opposing forces. People who rely on motivation chose the first option. People who succeed easily chose the second. The system's error. Confusing intensity with direction. A system can have enormous energy and still go nowhere. In physics, this is called internal cancellation. For humans, it looks like extreme effort, constant busyness, no net progress. When forces cancel internally, the system heats up but does not move. Burnout is not proof of effort. It is proof of misdirection. Why feedback loops? Determine speed. In control systems, response time depends on feedback delay. Short delay to fast correction, long delay to oscillation or collapse. Human progress follows the same rule. People who progress quickly, test early, expose error, correct immediately. People who stagnate, delay exposure, protect image, repeat mistakes. Feedback is not criticism, it is measurement. Avoiding measurement guarantees drift. The ego problem. Signal to noise ratio. Ego adds noise. Noise corrupts signal. Corrupted signal leads to wrong correction. Wrong correction increases instability. This is not psychology. This is signal processing. People with low ego are not humble. They are high-precision instruments. They detect error faster. They correct earlier. They converge sooner. Observers mistake this for talent. It is simply cleaner signal. Why copying fails? Contextual variables. In physics, equations without boundary conditions are useless. Yet people copy success routines without copying context. They imitate schedules, habits, aesthetics, but ignore constraints, resources, feedback channels. This guarantees failure. Cargo cult behavior looks active, but produces no progress. First principle thinkers rebuild from variables, not appearances. The complexity tax revisited. System design view. Every domain has irreducible complexity. You can face it, delay it, deny it. You cannot remove it. When complexity is delayed, it accumulates. Accumulated complexity appears later as confusion. Rework plateaus. Experts look fast because they already absorbed complexity. Beginners look slow because they are still borrowing against it. There is no free path, only timing choices. Why? Expert decisions look obvious. Experts appear decisive because fewer variables remain. Uncertainty is constrained models are tested. Decisiveness is not confidence. It is reduced entropy. High entropy systems hesitate. Low entropy systems act. Calm is not emotional. It is structural. Why struggle is a terrible metric. Struggle measures resistance, not correctness. Physics never optimizes for friction. It minimizes it. The right metric is, does this effort reduce uncertainty? If yes, continue. If no, redesign. People who redesign early appear to glide later. The second scientific correction. From a systems perspective, easy success means forces are aligned. Feedback is tight, resistance is minimal. That is not luck. That is configuration. Most people never change configuration. They only increase force. Physics predicts the outcome. Where most people get stuck permanently, they confuse. Pressure with progress, motion with direction, intensity with effectiveness. They stay inside unstable systems and blame themselves for instability. The system is the problem. What clarity actually means, scientifically, clarity is not inspiration. Clarity is correct variables, correct constraints, correct feedback. Once clarity exists, action becomes trivial. Observers think clarity came after success. Physics says clarity came before acceleration, the point where success starts looking easy. There is a moment when corrections become small, feedback stabilizes, decision simplify. At this point, motion feels smooth. Observers see only this phase. They never saw the instability. The model collapsed the corrections. They assume ease existed from the start. They are wrong. The second core conclusion. From a physics systems view, people do not succeed easily. They succeed when unstable configurations are removed. Resistance drops below a threshold, alignment replaces force. After that point, motion is inevitable. Why humans misread results, but physics never does. Humans explain outcomes backward. Physics never does. In physics, we start with initial conditions governing laws, constraints. Only then do we predict outcomes. Humans do the opposite. They see outcomes first and invent stories later. That is why phrases like overnight success, natural talent, it came easily, exist at all. They are post hoc narratives, not explanations. A physicist would never accept them. The perception. Error, time compression illusion. One of the strongest illusions in human judgment is time compression. When we look backward, long processes appear short. Gradual changes appear sudden. Invisible work disappears completely. This is not a flaw of memory. It is a limitation of perception. In physics, we know slow accumulation often crosses a visible threshold suddenly. Ice does not suddenly freeze. Temperature crossed a boundary. Stars do not suddenly ignite. Mass crossed a limit. Human success behaves the same way. Observers only see the threshold crossing moment. They never see the accumulation. They call the threshold easy. Why thresholds fool the human mind? Threshold phenomena are dangerous for intuition. Below the threshold, effort seems useless. Progress seems absent. Feedback seems discouraging. Above the threshold, results accelerate, corrections shrink, motion feels smooth. The human mind assumes the cause of acceleration must be new. Physics says the cause existed long before the threshold. People who cross thresholds appear special. They are not. They simply stayed long enough for accumulation to matter. The final role of luck, defined precisely. Luck exists, but not in the way people use it. In physics, randomness only matters within constraints. Luck cannot violate laws. It can only select outcomes among allowed states. In human systems, opportunity is random. Readiness is not. Luck amplifies readiness. It does not replace it. People who look lucky are often prepared, aligned, low-friction systems. Observers misattribute readiness to chance. That error comforts them. It also keeps them stuck. Why moral stories are scientifically useless. Most motivational explanations are moral stories. They wanted it more. They believed harder. They worked non-stop. Morality feels satisfying. It explains nothing. Physics does not care about virtue. Reality does not reward belief. Reality responds to correct models, correct constraints, correct feedback. Anything else is noise. The biggest myth. Struggle means I'm on the right path. This myth destroys more progress than laziness ever could. In physics, struggle has no value. Only information gain does. If resistance is not reducing uncertainty, it is meaningless. Grinding inside a wrong model does not produce insight. It only produces fatigue. People who exit meaningless struggle early appear to have smoother paths. They are not avoiding work. They are avoiding waste. Why simplicity is misunderstood. People worship simplicity without understanding its cost. True simplicity is not minimalism. It is compression after understanding. Physics compresses equations only after experiments. Experts compress reality because variables are known. Noise is removed. Constraints are clear. Beginners try to compress too early. They skip the chaos. They pay later. Experts look effortless because they already survived the mess. The final structural truth about confidence. Confidence is not emotional strength. Confidence is predictive accuracy. When your model predicts reality reliably, hesitation disappears. Experts are calm because surprises are rare. Corrections are small, systems are stable. Observers call this confidence. It is actually model convergence. Why most people never cross into ease? Because they never stop violating reality. They cling to broken assumptions, avoid feedback, protect identity, increase force instead of redesign. From a physics perspective, this guarantees stagnation. No law is being broken. The outcome is expected. The final correction, scientific form. From a first principles standpoint, people do not succeed easily. They succeed when resistance drops below a critical threshold, alignment replaces force feedback, converges, entropy decreases. After that point, progress is not heroic. It is inevitable. Why this feels uncomfortable and should. This framework removes excuses, moral comfort, victim narratives. It replaces them with responsibility for models, responsibility for feedback, responsibility for system design. This is not inspiring. It is stabilizing. Physics does not motivate. Physics explains. The final Feynman consistent answer. If forced to answer the question, why do some people succeed easily? A scientist would say people don't succeed easily. They stop violating reality earlier than others. Once violations stop, progress obeys the same rules as motion, smooth, predictable, and apparently effortless. The last word, no emotion, only mechanics. If you are waiting for things to feel easy before committing, you will wait forever. Ease is not a starting condition. Ease is an emergent property. The real sequence is not motivation to effort to success. The real sequence is model accuracy to alignment to low resistance to acceleration to illusion of ease. Once you understand this, you stop envying outcomes and start redesigning systems. That is not inspiration. That is physics.